The Chicago Education Watch with Dr. Barnett.
Welcome to Chicago Education Watch. I am Dr. Barnett, an educator, technology leader, policy advocate, and lifelong Chicagoan with more than 20 years of experience in public education. Throughout my career, I have served as a teacher, district administrator, instructional technology specialist, and contributor to state and national education initiatives, including Illinois Technology and Computer Science Standards and AI for K-12. I hold a PhD in instructional technology from Northern Illinois University, along with a Type 75 and a Master's of Legal Studies from DePaul University. Before we begin, I want to make a brief disclosure. I am currently a candidate for the Chicago Public Board of Education elected school board representing District 9B. As of this recording, my candidacy is the subject of an election petition challenge that remains pending. In a future episode, I will discuss that process and I will have learned what I have learned about ballot access and election procedures and public participation in local democracies. However, today's episode is focused on education policy and current events affecting Chicago public schools. Chicago Education Watch was created to help families, educators, students, and community members better understand the decisions that shape our schools. Each month, we'll follow the work of Chicago's elected school board, examine policies and budgets, discuss issues impacting classrooms, and provide straightforward analysis of education, news, and community concerns. This podcast is about transparency, accountability, and ensuring that the voices of parents, students, educators, and residents remain at the center of conversation. Today, we're discussing the testimony of Chicago Public Schools CEO Dr. Mackwillan King before Congress in Washington, D.C., and what that hearing could mean for Chicago students, families, educators, and the future direction of public education in our city. Thank you for joining me, and let's get started. So I am going to pull up that hearing. Okay, here we go.
Focus, as has been said a number of times in here, on the things that are really important and critical to us: the looming teacher shortage in this country, what's happening with literacy, what's happening with numeracy, and how we are attacking those. And, you know, the federal government bringing together the collective expertise of researchers and educators across the country and saying, what are the best practices in pedagogy that are going to really improve outcomes for our kids, and identifying that. We have a What Works database that was developed by the federal government that says, here's the very best practices in education, and if you do these things in your schools, you're likely to impact kids in a positive way. That's the sort of leadership we look to from the federal government.
Thank you, and we're disbanding IES. Dr. King, can you say what we could do to be helpful to help you improve education and reduce achievement gaps?
I would say fully fund our schools. That is what is most needed in this time. And to work with our state and the federal government, work with our state legislatures to ensure that there's clarity around the laws that are in question today. And I would also say to make our students the center of the decisions and the focus, as opposed to some of the other top focuses.
And what would the money be used for?
Our money would be used to target those students' needs that we have. If there's students that are receiving special education services, allow us to target that. The cost of educating children today has increased substantially, whereas the funding sources have not. So there is an increase in costs, but it is also, there's a correlation between the the cost of the resources that are needed to support children.
And Dr. Sue, very briefly.
I would echo my colleagues. I would just continue to emphasize that funding special education at the 40% commitment rate when IDEA was first initiated would be extremely crucial and helpful and beneficial to local school districts, particularly at SFUSD. We would be able to then provide the much needed wraparound supports that our students would need. We would also love for us to continue to prioritize our low-income students and our English language learners at the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman's time has expired, and now it's time for closing comments. I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, thank you for the witnesses for joining us today. The federal government has a responsibility to ensure that all children, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, income, or zip code, receive a quality education in a safe school environment. But instead of fulfilling this mandate, we focused on spending time injecting culture war debates in the classrooms, all the while the Trump administration is dismantling the Department of Education, starting with the Office of Civil Rights. While hearings like this held today may make for good sound bites, they don't make for good policy, they don't help improve education. So it's time for Congress to give up the political theater and stop the politicization of education and focus on what really matters, and that is improving education in our public schools and combating gun violence in our public schools. These ideas should not be controversial, but by perpetuating ideological debates, Republicans are only deepening the partisan divides that do nothing to improve student outcomes or safety. Democrats are committed to delivering for our students, teachers, and families and fighting back against the Trump administration's attacks on America's education system. We are focused on improving schools, ensuring students have a bright future ahead of them, not playing political games, and I welcome you to join in that fight. I would like to make sure that the letters that I referenced at the beginning of my testimony are entered into the record by United States. And there's another letter that I'd like entered by United States.
Without objection, they will all be entered.
From the Legal Defense Fund. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. And I thank the panel for being here, in disagreement or in agreement. And I'm glad we had some good positive shows of some things that are taking place in the San Francisco Unified School District. We want that to take place. I think we've been characterized today in two spectrums. Democrats want to see improvement in education, Republicans don't. Republicans want racism to continue, Democrats don't. Both of those are false statements. This hearing today is for the reason of getting back to solid education and getting away from these cultural wars, that was a term that was used consistently today. But those cultural wars have been produced in such a way that it's impacting education. I put out a press statement today relative to the NAEP scores, where I said the latest NAEP results make clear that we must renew our focus on the fundamentals. Reading and math are the foundation of every student's success. I think we agree on that. And too many children are still struggling to master these essential skills. While it's encouraging to see some improvement among 9-year-olds in reading and math, we still have a long way to go. 13-year-olds showed essentially no improvement, underscoring the lasting academic damage caused by school closures, of course, referring back to COVID. Every child should have the skills they need to succeed long after they leave the classroom. We cannot afford to let another generation fall behind. I think we can all agree on that. Trouble is, we're seeing a lot of energy and effort put into things that don't matter. The fact of the matter is, almost 80% of our citizens polled clearly stated they don't want males and female sports or restrooms. And yet your schools and the state of Illinois rules that you follow, that you, Dr. King, referred to so often, encourage that. Those are the things that we're concerned that are taking away from the science of reading, et cetera, that will change our school systems. COVID had one silver lining. It allowed parents to see what was going on in the classrooms that their kids were in. And we saw a significant exodus of parents and children moving to other settings of education, including home education. One of our members here, in fact, talked of her home educational experience, not during COVID, but she saw that as necessary and an outcome producer of quality for her son. But I think other parents are seeing the same thing, and when they are wrestling with the fact that their kids are encouraged to go against even their home family ideals and involve themselves in political statements, that they are being taught things that aren't scientifically true. I remember Dr. Fauci for 3 years telling us to follow the science about COVID. Well, I think you all ought to follow the science about gender, male and female. And if you love your kids, as I hope you do, love comes with truth, telling them the truth. IDA funding and funding for special needs and mental health is certainly necessary. And I'm glad, even as I spoke with the Secretary of Education today, who reminded me that the increased funding that they have put in, this administration has put in, rivals anything in the last several decades and in fact expands upon it. Now it's up to Congress to approve that increase in IDA funding. That will be helpful, but will that funding be also used to teach our young people the truth, as opposed to going along with the cultural settings out there trying to change reality about gender? Those are our concerns, and that was the reason for this hearing today. Yes, it was tough. And Dr. King, thank you for letting me know that we had to subpoena you to come. After trying all sorts of mechanisms and timelines and dates that for some reason or other never worked out, we had to subpoena you. So I'm glad you're here with the others who weren't subpoenaed. But we needed to have this discussion, because if we don't have this discussion, then it's the same old, same old. And the same old isn't producing the quality we need in education to stay ahead of the world and to be that beacon in the world that we need to be. We're are frustrated that segregation is most rampant in Democrat-governed cities. And yet they try to place it on us as being the sponsors of segregation. Not true. We're leading the universal choice opportunity to give choice in even those cities, including Chicago. The opportunity for kids to have a choice so they aren't in segregated situations, if that be what my Democrat colleagues say is true. We don't want that. We want people with diverse opportunities as well as diversity in the classrooms. This misinformation campaign that comes from my Democrat colleagues too often has to stop as well. So bottom line, this was an important hearing. An emotional hearing, of course, but this is part of education. And parents should not be as entities to be managed. If indeed what you said today is true, that parents are integral to the success of your educational experience, we'd like to see that. In school board meetings, in the media reports of what is going on in the lives of parents and their children, who they've asked you to supplement education that they can't provide. That's what we want to see. So again, thank you for being here. And I trust that all those who watched today, all those who will hear reports if reported fairly and accurately, we'll see for the first time an opportunity that this isn't hidden anymore, and education is going to be promoted. With that, no other questions or issues to be dealt with, this committee is adjourned.
Okay, so we just heard a snippet of the testimony by the CPS CEO. What do we? I'm gonna have a poll that I'm gonna place up here in just a second. What do we think about it? As I heard today's testimony, the viewpoints are definitely worth discussing. There was arguments about what's being taught in the schools, how policies affect our children and how they are implemented. School districts should be fully transparent with families. Some people believe the school board should be transparent. CPS King argued that she wanted the budget to be the forefront in discussing about the school board. But what do we think? Some observers question whether Congress was focusing on the issues that matter the most to Chicago families during the hearing. Dr. King suggested that many parents are more concerned about school funding, as I stated, classroom resources, staffing, academic achievement, and potential budget cuts than the issues that had dominated that questioning. Finally, the hearing raises a broader question about local control. To what extent should decisions about curriculum, student support services, and district policies be made by local school leaders and elected officials versus federal policy makers in Washington? That debate is likely to continue long after the hearing. But before I close, as you can get the post there, I want to share that the heart of why I created Chicago Education Watch is that this podcast is intended to challenge the status quo, not for the sake of criticism, but for the purpose of encouraging thoughtful discussion, accountability, and continuous improvement. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I certainly don't claim to be perfect. The truth is, none of us are. We are all people on a journey trying to find better ways to serve our communities, strengthen our schools, and become more productive citizens. One of the values I hope to bring to this platform is humility. I never want to be so important or become so important and certain or so committed to my own position that I cannot get it wrong. If I make a mistake, I will acknowledge it. If I learn new information that changes my perspective, I will say so. If I owe someone an apology, I will apologize. As educators, we teach our children every day that mistakes are not failures. Mistakes are opportunities to learn, grow, and become better. We encourage students to reflect, adjust, and keep moving forward. I believe we should expect the same of ourselves and extend that same grace to one another. My hope is that Chicago Education Watch can help build bridges rather than walls, that we can have honest conversations, disagree respectfully, learn from one another, and work towards solutions that benefit our students, families, and educators and communities. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I look forward to learning alongside you.